Thank you for coming to Startup Nation Central today. I'm happy to welcome you to the Finland and Israel Developing Better Healthcare with Data event. My name is Lena Rogovin, and I'm leading the digital health sector here at Startup Nation Central. And first of all, I want to thank our friends from the Embassy of Finland in Israel. Thank you for helping putting together all this event, and everyone who took the time to attend and contribute to the success of the event, those of you who are here physically with us and those who participate remotely. Over the next couple of hours, we'll talk and focus our attention on medical data and what it allows us to do. This might come as a surprise, but in Israel, digital health is the largest sector, tech sector, in terms of number of companies, and it's even bigger than fintech or cybersecurity. And if you don't believe me, I encourage you to visit our Startup Nation Finder platform, innovation discovery platform, where we map the entire high-tech ecosystem of Israel, and you will see that there are more than 750 digital health startups operating in this space. It's first of all, that's because of data availability, and basically 25 years of digitalized accumulated medical data accumulated by 4 Israeli HMOs, healthcare maintenance organizations, is the reason for this sector booming. This what allows these companies to build solutions, to build and test solutions which might impact millions of lives around the globe. Think about precision medicine, about remote diagnostics, about decision support, population health management. All these depend on having high quality and accessible medical data. And that in turn translates into economic opportunities. And that's why Israeli digital health companies have raised more than $2 billion last year only. And you can find more insights about what's happening in Israeli digital health sector, and not only on our websites, startupnationcentral.org. All the reports and landscape maps and many more materials. We have just published the Femtech landscape map. We have, in honor of International Women's Day, and we just published Consumer Digital Health Solutions landscape map. it's all on our social media as well. And anyway, before we get too far into details, I would like to take a moment and to show a short video explaining what Startup Nation Central does. And so let's watch the video and we'll get into the matter at hand. Thank you. And now it's my honor to introduce Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Finland in Israel, Kirsika Lehto, to greet us via video. She unfortunately could not join us in person today, but welcome.
Dear friends of digital health in Finland and in Israel, I am delighted to see so many participants in our hybrid event today. It clearly indicates the importance of our topic, how we should develop better, more innovative and more patient-centric healthcare systems with data. Finland and Israel share a very similar structure in their healthcare systems. It is a world-class, universal, digitalized, mostly public sector driven, and all residents are entitled to basic healthcare as a fundamental right. Both countries also have collected health data for decades and have a digital key for their citizens, national ID number. Building a nationwide platform is not an easy task for any country, as it involves many challenges in regulations, creating new policies, building technical infrastructure, and probably most important of all, gaining and maintaining the trust from the citizens, that their sensitive social and healthcare data is treated in a secure and transparent way. I am proud to say that Finland has been taking big steps, even in a global scale, in the secondary use of data. And therefore, Finland is also one of the leading countries in EU's joint action towards the European Health Data Space cooperation project. We are also very lucky to have one of the project leads with us today in the panel, Markus Kalliola from Sitra, who coordinates Health Data 2030 project from Finland, in addition to many other leading experts from both countries. Our session today also starts a series of digital health activities between Finland and Israel, and I believe that through these we will find more joint projects, and not only in R&D, but also in various joint ventures and in business. This way we can build better and more innovative healthcare in both countries and create new opportunities in many areas. Thanks again for joining us today, and I hope you will enjoy today's discussions and insights. Kiitos, thank you, toda raba.
And next, it's my honor to invite Her Excellency Hagit Ben Yaakov, the Ambassador of Israel to Finland. She joins by Zoom.
I hope you can hear me well. Thank you so much, NNC, and thank you so much, the Embassy of Finland in Tel Aviv, for a beautiful cooperation and pushing forward for activities like this event that we are now participating in. Being part of this event makes me proud. It's part of my portfolio since I came here last year to enhance the economic relations, to make sure more businesses, more trade, but also more science can do together between Finnish and Israelis. Of course, we cannot underestimate the importance of the digital health. It made the medical more personal, more accurate, and of course, the cliche of the corona, I will have to use it because the use of data during the war or fighting corona was, of course, very important. Personally, I can tell you, I was just healing from corona last week, and I felt how everything that is digital helps so much also to make life better when you are far from your relatives and from work. So I would like to wish every one of you a success in this webinar and to wish all the companies good and successful in their cooperation. It's for our future. It's the future of the relationship between the two states and the citizens of Israel and Finland. Thank you so much. Enjoy the webinar and good luck.
Okay, thank you so much, Lena. Thank you, dear ambassadors, Kirsika Lehto, Hagit Ben Yaakov. Shalom, tervehdys, good afternoon to everyone in Finland and here in Israel also on my behalf. My name is Sami Askelainen. I work for the Finnish Embassy here as a commercial counselor, and I'm going to be your MC today. So it's my great pleasure to warmly welcome you all to this event. And during which we will hear really, really interesting learnings from Finland and Israel, how to develop better healthcare with data. And before we start, let's have a quick look at then our agenda today. If we can get the next slide, please. While the slide is coming there, so first we will have a really, really interesting panel where basically leading experts from both countries, Finland and Israel, will share learnings basically where both countries are currently with their healthcare data systems and platforms, how the journey has been to get there, and of course, what have been the key learnings during this journey, and also what lies ahead next. After the panel, we will have time for a couple of questions for our panelists, and people who are joining us virtually, you can post the questions to Q&A, and then we will pick the best ones from there. Please also then remember to indicate to which panelist your question is for. And although today's event is focusing a lot about knowledge and learnings exchange, we also want to give an opportunity for some of the companies from Finland and Israel to showcase their health data related solutions, and these presentations will be then heard after the panel. As the ambassador mentioned earlier, we will have plenty of activities coming in a healthcare arena this year. And really the key objective is to build the bridge between these two great nations and the ecosystem in a healthcare and really help build businesses in both ends. For example, HIMSS European Health Conference will be organized in Helsinki this year in the mid-June. And we definitely would like to invite an Israeli delegation to visit Helsinki. And not only visit HIMSS, but also to see how the Finnish digital healthcare landscape looks like today. Because we have 100% digitalized healthcare patient records, we have a very, very innovation-friendly legislation, good availability for world-class scientists, engineers, and the latest technologies, highly digitalized healthcare, and healthcare is actually one of the largest and fastest growing export sectors in Finland. And Finland also been always a good market to enter the Nordic and European markets. I'm also very happy and delighted to announce that we are now also planning activities to provide a framework for testbed opportunities for Israeli companies in the Finnish hospitals and vice versa. We will also organize different kind of roundtables and matchmaking events, and the plan is to bring a Finnish med tech delegation to Israel after summer. So these are just a few examples of our upcoming activities. So stay tuned, watch this space, or you can contact me after the event to find out more. And now, let's get to the beef. And without any further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator, Limor Smelling Magazanik. Hopefully I got the name right. I'm still learning my Hebrew. Who is a managing director of the Israel Tech Policy on the States. And she will kickstart the conversation with our amazing panelists tonight. Welcome again on my behalf. Enjoy the conversation, and remember to ask tough questions from the panelists. This is a really, really great avenue to do that. Thank you.
Joel and Yael, maybe join me. Thank you. Okay. So hello everyone again, and thank you for being here, and I'm really excited to start the conversation. And I'm going to take a few minutes firstly to maybe set the stage and explain why are we discussing this issue. So why do we need to think about how do we make data available for research? Because as was said before, it's quite evident that data is crucial. The pandemic has showed us how health data is crucial for our being able to tackle this worldwide challenge. Even before the COVID pandemic, it was clear to many that data is essential to develop AI models for health and to improve healthcare. So why do we need to give it an extra thought, just to clear the basics? So health data, our medical data is both sensitive and confidential and personal. So it's clear to everyone in the health profession that there is a confidentiality of patient data. If we want to make patients' data that is held by health organizations, HMOs, hospitals, ministries of health, companies that provide us with services, medical services, it's not obvious that this is allowed by many countries' regulations. So we want to create an environment, both through policy, through regulations, through legislation, through technological infrastructure that creates the possibility of accessing and sharing this sensitive personal data, because we think that there's a public interest in doing so. We realize that as a society, there's sense in doing that. We want to be able to enjoy the benefits of health data, to unlock the power of data with big data analytic tools, with AI models, but we want to make that in a way that maintains safeguards of people's privacy, of people's rights. We want to maintain public trust that while we do this, we're not infringing on people's liberties, we're not endangering their very sensitive personal data. The secondary use of health data for research, the title that we mentioned here already, that means that data that was collected for healthcare giving is now repurposed, reused, receives a secondary use for research. That means that we need to create a framework that enables this process. And we're going to hear today from governments who have done this process. Both Finland and Israel have initiated regulations and policies and frameworks and technological environments that are aimed to drive this type of data sharing, data access for startups, for companies, for academia, for researchers of all organizations, in order to support better healthcare for everyone. So we're gonna start with our first speaker, who is Johanna Seppänen, director at FinData. I'm gonna move a little bit so I can see Johanna as well. And Johanna, you've been pioneering the policy implementation, this policy implementation in Finland, in practice at FinData. Can you tell us a little bit about FinData as a center that facilitates access to health data for secondary use research? What is your current status of operations? Some of your early experiences from implementing this innovative legislation.
Okay. Can you hear me well? So, first of all, thank you for the invitation, and thanks for Sami for your kind words. I'm proud to tell you that FinData is up and running. We have the Act on Secondary Use of Health Data in Finland that took effect in 2019. And after that, we had quite a narrow or short time window to build up the organization, to recruit the staff, and to start our services. But we are now 25 people, and we have started all our services. Last year, the year 2021, was our first full operation year. We grant data permits practically to all the social and health data that exists or accumulates in the Finnish healthcare system. And we also grant permits to the Finnish national health registers that are quite wide and have long time series rooting back to 1950s. In addition to giving permits, we also collect the data from the data controllers. So we are not an federated system, or we don't either have a data pool, but we are study by study, case by case. We are sending sampling requests to data controllers, who then send the samples to FinData, who collects the data, combines it, and then pseudonymizes or anonymizes depending on the case. So we are not giving out the direct identifiers to ensure the confidentiality and the data safety for Finnish citizens. We also produce statistical level data, aggregated data on request, if you wish it that way. We maintain and produce a secure IT system for operating with the data, for transferring the data from the data controllers to FinData, and also a remote access system for our clients, researchers, to use, where they can safely analyze the data. We also we have an help desk for data users. So now there is one single contact point in Finland where you can ask about the availability, about the quality, about the price of data, and all kinds of questions that you might have. That has been a very popular service. We do our best to answer, and more knowledge accumulates to FinData, respect to that. But if we can't answer, we then contact the data controllers who know their own data best. We also have anonymization services for our clients. Yes, some statistics just to get an idea about the volume. We just had our, as I mentioned, our first full operating year, and during that we received 3,012 applications. We made 262 decisions. We handled 330 data sets, and in our remote access system called Kapseli, there was, by the end of the year, 300 users. So not all of the applications were new researches, but research projects, but many of them were. So we give 200-300 permits per year and handle the data respect to that. So that's about the volume. Well, you could say that we are the one-stop shop for health data. So we are kind of an gatekeeper authority to the Finnish health data, which makes all the customers to come to us. So that's of course taken into account.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Johanna. That's a very impressive accomplishment in such a short time, and especially taking into account that these projects in government are even more complicated. I know that from my personal experience. So we will be back with you later on for additional questions, but now let us move on to our next speaker, Jukka Lahesma, Consulting Officer at the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health in Finland. And this is the ministry in the Finnish government that was the driver, the initiator, the force behind the legislation that enabled this project of establishing FinData and creating this access point for health data research. And Jukka, can you tell us about the lessons learned in Finland since the legislation to boost medical research through access to data started?
Yes, certainly. It is my great pleasure to be here talking with you. But let me start a little bit about the background and the objectives of our legislation, and then I come to the lessons learned. Because the starting point why we established this, our secondary use legislation, was such that as already mentioned here, we have a long history of collecting these our national databases. Since 1960s, we have collecting the national databases, and we do have a very extensive and high quality registers in Finland, and also our regional authorities, they are now combining their own data into the data lakes where it can be utilized. And we have a long tradition of using this data for the primary purposes. So doctors, nurses, and social workers and workers like that have utilized the digital format data for a long time. But we noticed that we are not fully utilizing the data for the secondary purposes, for research, innovation activities, and knowledge management. And this was the reason behind why we established this our Act on the secondary use of data. And the Act has two major objectives. First of all, to enable easy access to the all different data in Finland for the secondary purposes to utilize it. And then the second main objective is that all this has to happen in a very secure manner, and the data has to be protected in all situations. And based on the Act, then we have established the FinData, the Data Permit Authority. I'm not going to tell you anything about that, how it's working, because Johanna just explained it very good. But then I'm coming to the lessons learned. And from the ministry's perspective, I would like to mention two issues. And the first one is that while the FinData has worked excellent, it has in very fast period established the new organization and streamlined its processes and working quite nicely today. We have also noticed that this is not enough, because we have to insert the whole value chain. How the customers are able to communicate not only with the FinData, but also with the other register holders, and how the FinData is working together with the register owners when they are delivering the data first to the FinData and then to the customers. And we still do have quite a lot of work to do in that field to have the whole value chain working as good as it could be. So the first lesson learned is that you have to bring all the stakeholders together to this work. And then the second learning from the ministry's perspective is that when Finland is just one nation, and we very much would like to also borrow this our data for international research purposes. we have noticed that there is no one single procedure, standard, or certificate international available that the international organizations could tell us that we are able to secure the data if you are borrowing it to us. So at the moment we are in a situation that we are not able to send the Finnish data abroad. You are very welcome to come to Finland, be customer for FinData and have access to the data and utilize it within in the Finnish secure environments, but you are not able to take it away from Finland. But we would very much like this to be happening also on an international level, and that is the main objective for Finland to participate the European health data space development that Markus is telling you later on. So these are the two lessons learned, and you notice that we still do have quite a lot of work to do with the access to the data. But if nobody is utilizing the data, that is a big challenge for us, because we get the benefits only if somebody is utilizing the data. And this is the main reason why our ministry has now focused the resources also to the utilization, and we have just established this new ingenious ecosystem where we are inviting all the different public and private organizations in Finland that are doing research and analytics services based on the data under the same umbrella ecosystem and one brand. So we can say that you can really have the one window opportunity to Finland, find the persons you need for this kind of a cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jukka. That was fascinating, and I think we will pick up on that as well, because it's very important, the lesson to have all stakeholders and all actors in the game. But you've given us a great segue to our next speaker, Markus Kalliola, the project director for the Health Data 2030 project at Sitra in Finland. Sitra is a think tank within the Finnish Parliament that has been contributing from its experience to the development of the pan-European health data space project. For those who are not familiar, the European Union have a very large project that is facilitating and aiming to enable the sharing of data in various European health data spaces in various sectors, including education, finances, and health is one of the primary ones. And Finland has been contributing from its experience with FinData to the European health data space, and this really connects with Jukka's lesson and even question: how do we share data internationally? And again, the COVID pandemic has showed us how important it is to share data between countries and not only inside countries. So Markus, please tell us, what is the status of this project and what best practices has Finland been suggesting to it?
Well, thank you. Happy to build on what Johanna and Jukka has already been telling you. So Sitra is currently coordinating a joint action of 25 European countries to give European Commission and the member states support in drafting the European health data space legislation and also that implementing it. So we have now worked for 1 year within this project, and Finland and the Finnish Innovation Fund that I represent were chosen as a coordinator because of the actions that we have done in Finland. So because we are pioneers through FinData and the legislation, and we have experience on that side. So within the first year, we have identified many barriers for health data use in EU. We just published actually a document last month that we went through more than 50 different scientific papers and interviewed experts. And the end result was that more than 50% of the barriers to access health data are legal. So we have to streamline and harmonize our legal processes to access data. how do we define what is health, what is secondary use of health data? How do we define what is enough pseudonymization, what is anonymization, so that we can do secondary use of health data research on a coherent manner. We have also made a lot of proposals regarding how the regulation should be drafted, regarding data quality, what kind of infrastructure we need. So we need a distributed, federated infrastructure, not a centralized model. We have also indicated that we need stronger governance. We need a real European governance body to steer and guide the secondary use of health data in EU. So those has probably been the most significant findings so far, and in our project. The work will be ongoing for another year, but happily I could say to you that the legislative proposal from the Commission is expected within 1 month's time. So soon we will all see what are the outcomes also, and what are the impacts of our project, so the DATAS project, into the European Health Data Space Regulation. But looking forward for the future discussion today with you all regarding their use of health data in EU.
Thank you very much. And I think that we will be touching a bit more about centralized versus decentralized solutions for health data access, which is one of the main themes that was present in these discussions all over the world. I can share with you that at the Israel Tech Policy Institute, the think tank that I manage, we surveyed last year 8 governments and their evolving national policies for granting access to health data for secondary use research. And the question of centralization, meaning collecting all the data sets and keeping them in one place, keeping them in the hands of one database administrator or manager, or in one platform technologically, that is one model that has its advantages and disadvantages. Main disadvantages, as seen by the privacy profession and the cybersecurity profession, are basically putting all of our eggs in the same place, and that is a risk that may be to our disadvantage when we're talking about health data. Think about the rising number of cybersecurity attacks on the health sector that we've seen in the past 2 years during the pandemic, and that's something we really wish to avoid. Decentralized would be having the data remain where it is, namely in the health organizations or within the companies that have collected it for different purposes, or in different ministries within different governments, or if we're talking about the international level, keeping them in different countries, and creating the technological architectures that allow the accessing of the data, the research, the query of these data sets when they're still distributed in various places. Also, advantages, disadvantages. Those of you who are from industry, from academia, can imagine the barriers and the advantages that we have from choosing this type of model. So this is a very central question to the safeguarding of health data while we give access for research. And I want to take us now to Israel, and it's 2 fine speakers sitting here with me at the studio. And the first one is Yoel Ben-Or, who is the head of policy for digital health at the Ministry of Israel. And Yoel, Israel has also been promoting its own secondary use of health data for research policy, and also has been thinking about innovative solutions, how to make this possible. I know that we've been following Israel's approach and Israel's work as well. Do tell us a little bit about the status of these various projects.
Sure, thank you. So in 2018, the government of Israel passed a resolution called the Digital Health as a Growth Engine. And in this policy, there's various projects. It's about $300 million investment. And I think if we look back 4 years and the project that succeeded and project that failed, then I think one lesson learned is that competition is very important if we want to see collaboration on secondary use of health data. And the strategy of competition in projects that succeed is, you can see it also in the regulatory framework, which is decentralized. We have local IRBs who are giving permits in every health organization. So 2-3 years ago, I think it was a long process. Today, in most health organizations, the permit system works quite well. There's things to do better, but I think the competition drove the permit systems to work good. And if you look at the infrastructure level, also the decentralized approach, where we as government are investing in health organization infrastructure to help them collaborate with the ecosystem, startups and researchers, is also something that drives much more collaboration than us as government trying to control this system. We still, this is the strength, I think, the decentralized approach. That, as you told, there are weaknesses. I think one of the weaknesses is at the end of the day, we want to see more collaboration between health organizations. A lot of time, researchers will need big data, would want to have a collaboration between 2 health organizations. And so we want to see the needle moving from competition to co-opetition. And this is a challenge. But I think this is one of the things that we want to see more in the coming years.
And could you tell us a little bit about your new data portability project? And in what way does that differ from the initial project that you had previously discussed?
Sure. So I think secondary use is very interesting. All governments are talking about it, and you need to have the regulatory framework and the infrastructure. But I think we cannot not think on the disruption coming ahead of us for giving patients themselves the ability to access their data and share it with third parties. And this is something that when you look at the decentralized versus centralized approach, let's look at the patient themselves. And it's not just how we give access, is how we enable the patients to share their data. And the US, I think, is leading in this domain with new regulation, the Cures Act, that enables every patient by the end of 2023, every health organization in the US will have the ability to share their data in a standardized format. And I think all governments will need to think of these kinds of frameworks. There's a lot of challenges, but we're starting to think about it seriously in Israel. We're investing in first, from the technological perspective, investing in standardizing the data. But the next stage will be to think of the regulation, the framework of how patients themselves can decide with whom they can share their data.
Thank you. So just to point out a few things that we learned when we're talking about centralized and decentralized in these types of institutional structures, there is a centralization of the data permits or authorizations. So that means, where do you go if you're a researcher or a group of researchers that want to gain access to data? Do you go to a centralized permits authority like FinData, or, as Yoel just described, do you go to the health organization itself, the HMO, the hospital, to their board of ethics, Helsinki committee, and ask them to give you access to the data? And then the permits are basically decentralized within various health organizations and potentially also various companies who are participating in this ecosystem. What I told you before was the technological architecture of holding the data itself. So do we centralize the data or decentralize it? Do we centralize the permits to the data access, or do we keep them decentralized? So we have these two axes, and we have a perfect candidate to hear from. Yael Pomerantz is the business development manager at Clalit Innovation. Clalit is Israel's largest health management organization and has also a research center that is prominent not only here but also worldwide. And we'd love to hear from you, your perspective. You've been doing research for quite a while within Clalit, but also thinking about collaborating with other actors in the ecosystem. How are you going about doing that, and how are government policies supporting that effort?
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a very valid question for Clalit. So as you mentioned, Clalit is the largest healthcare provider in Israel, which covers more than half the population, close to 5 million people. And yes, we have been computerizing our EMRs gradually since the 90s. Oh, you can speak. Should I start over?
Yeah, I think.
So briefly, Clalit is the largest healthcare provider in Israel, covering more than half the population, close to 5 million people. And we have EMRs that are digitalized since the 90s. So we have close to 20 years of medical records. And like for over 10 years, Clalit Research Institute has been studying this data and striving to provide better healthcare from insights that derive from this data to improve healthcare to the patients and to the people insured in Clalit. So we do have this, we already have this amazing data set. It's one of the largest sets in the world that includes both clinics and hospitals and procedures, labs, medications. It includes so many verticals, but still, when we want to collaborate, it's not so easy because there are questions of safety and regulations and privacy. Like my Finnish friends and colleagues said before, you can't just send the data over. We're all terrified of the idea of a breach. So we do need to make sure that things are kept safe. And for that reason, it's been hard to democratize the access to data. However, in recent years, we have been able to do that much thanks to government support. Because if you think about it, health data was not created for research or for R&D. It was created as a byproduct of providing health and health care and health, providing care to patients, which is what Clalit does. Clalit is not an organization that was originally focused on being an R&D organization. So the funds that it has needs to be allocated first and foremost for hospital beds, to give medications. This is the goal of Clalit Health Services. And that's why Clalit Innovation was established. So we can serve as the innovation arm, as the bridge that helps the ecosystem work with the healthcare system and bridge these two different aspects of what we want to do, because we want to provide excellent healthcare, but we also want to be a part of this ecosystem, and we want to do R&D, and we want to do to take part in the most cutting edge advancements and innovation. And so recently we were able to utilize the funds allocated by the Ministry of Health to, first of all, democratize the access to research within the organization. So we were able to, with the aid of the government, to create an infrastructure that enabled researchers from all across the Clalit conduct research safely, securely, access because it wasn't available physically before. After this step, what we're really excited about is another initiative that we are looking to embark on that will enable us to collaborate on the cloud with outside companies, and that would really allow us to collaborate with startups, with smaller companies, because we have been working with larger companies, with academia, within the Institute, Research Institute. As you mentioned, we were doing research. Clalit Institute, especially in the last couple of years, was able to during the COVID pandemic was able to provide very insightful insights, I guess, very useful insights on the efficacy of the vaccine and the safety, and really helped decision makers worldwide to provide better care and manage this the pandemic, because we were able to really utilize the data coming from the records in the real world. Really do real world evidence science, which is not something to be taken lightly. It was very, but we really want to do it with all the ecosystem as well.
Okay. Thank you so much, Yael. That's fascinating. And if I want to be a bit blunt and take the bottom line, you're saying to policymakers we have here quite a few of, that's great that you're helping us with policy and regulation. Help us with money and budgets as well.
Well, it helps, you know.
It helps. It's not a bad thing to have.
When you have budgets that are colored and are dedicated to building infrastructure, we have to use that for them, and we can't. No one in the management can say, "Oh, well, we need to do this and that." The priorities, each body has their priorities, and when the government wants to do something, if it gives money to do only that, well, it's, you know,
then you're happy.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So we're going to move now to some questions that we've already received from the audience remote, and the audience here also are invited. If you want to raise your hand, I'm sure someone will be able to grab you a mic. But let's start with one question that we received from our audience, and this is to our Finnish experts, the three experts from Finland, and it is: what is your view of the Eden project as a platform from data sharing? If I'm not mistaken, from my previous knowledge, Eden is a European initiative that includes both industry players, pharma companies, and health organizations and academic institutions that have created a virtual environment and a project for data sharing and granting access to data. I hope I'm not mistaken here. So to each of the Finnish experts, feel free to just chime in and give your perspective.
Well,
Marcus, thank you.
Thanks. A good question, since there's so many EU projects working on health data and health data sharing. In Data's Joint Action, we host what we call the project forum, where we bring all these projects together to discuss. And in our meetings, we have had more than 100 people, more than 50 projects. And in one of the meetings last year, one of the speakers said that whenever you start a new EU project, there's discussion on these privacy issues, legislation, and data sharing. So Eden is one project where methodologies, technologies, and collaboration is tested and piloted. But the EU is kind of promised land of health data projects, and it's not the way to go. We need a harmonized legislation where in the beginning of each project, we don't need to think how we do the collaboration, but we have a clear rules and regulation on how it's done. So this is something that we are waiting, and what we will have this spring, a new legislation. Now, on top of that, then we can build EU projects and collaborations that have a solid foundation. So Eden is among those projects that has been working on the topic, but what we really need is a legal ground.
Yes, thank you. So I absolutely understand what you're saying. There are a lot of initiatives, but strength would be in unification and in collaborating and working together. Do we have any questions from the audience here? Yes. Can we get a mic? Can we take one of yours?
Who is obliged to report to you the data? Is it compulsory or that voluntary? Is it on a standard format? And how is the data collected the same way in the different organizations? Because I know from international project research, there is problem regarding the way it was collected, and it be a different way and give not a real, it's difficult to work with data was not collected in the same way.
Okay, thank you. So I think this is for Johanna, and maybe afterwards, Joel, if you want to also participate. But Johanna, can you tell us, is it obligatory in Finland to give the data once someone asks for it, once a FinData permit authority gives a permit? And how do you collect? And is there standardization of the data collected so that research would be simplified?
Okay. In Finland, we call it an opt-out system that we have. So all, as Jukka mentioned, all the patient data is in digital form in Finland. All the data that is collected in healthcare centers and hospitals and people using social services. And we don't need a patient's consent to use that data for research. But in Finland, you can't just take the data and use it for research. You need an authority permit for that. And that is what FinData is doing. So we are allowed to use the data from, for example, hospitals for research after giving an authority permit. We don't need to ask the citizens or the patients giving the data. And that is what makes it possible to do research that covers almost the whole population and with very large samples, and also population-based clinical research and so on. Finland is, for example, a very attractive country for developing or researching vaccinations because we can, after vaccinating, we can follow up the patients from the national registries. You don't need to spend a lot of effort and money to ask the people for follow-up visits. What comes to the interoperability of the data, we are working on it. Secondary use is really nothing new. It has taken place before FinData and before the Act, but now we have clearer rules for that. And FinData has also the task to take a leading role in the metadata work. So we are providing tools for the data controllers to do standardized data descriptions and data structures. We are also giving help to them and providing help for them to use that alongside the tools. So many of the big national registries are already in a standardized data form. But of course, if we think about the whole healthcare system and all the operating units in more than 300 Finnish municipalities, of course, there are data in different forms, and that is sometimes the problem. So we can't link or we can't combine apples and bananas. So then sometimes we have to just link what we can and left the rest unlinked. But we are working on that, and the interoperability of the data is more like a marathon. It's not a quick race, but we are working on that. I hope this answers to your question.
Thank you, Hannah. But I do have a follow-up question. So we mentioned that there's no need for consent. The law in Finland allows the sharing of patient data through this scheme. But are health organizations mandated to give the data, to give access to the data once a researching group asks for it, or is this in their discretion?
If we are giving the permit for the research group to use the data, but if we are giving the permit, the data controllers are obliged to send the samples to FinData. So FinData has the Act on Secondary Use guarantees the mandate for FinData to get all the data that is needed for the permitted studies.
Thank you. Do we have any follow-ups that you want to chime in, or because we have another question from the audience? Just one, you'll be next. And so we have a question from our remote listeners, and this is to all of our experts. Just sign if you want to answer. What do you feel, or what are your thoughts about blockchain being a technology in this space, enabling health data access? Let's put this in the back. Let's put this in the bucket for recommendations for future work. Yeah, and we have a question here in the audience while you're thinking if you wanna.
And it's really exciting, and we know it has a lot of advantages in terms of keeping things secure. I have heard of a few initiatives about using it in health data, but I haven't seen much work about it. And I think this is exactly the type of developments that we need the ecosystem for, because look at us, we're like, oh, I don't know. But I know there are a lot of, maybe not him, yeah. But I think a lot of startups would be the ones that would include this disruption and insert this disruption into the ecosystem. And this is like a great example, I think, of how health organizations and governments, why they need these small disruptive startups as collaborators.
Thanks for your courage, Yael. And
I'm willing to say one sentence also,
okay, so Yoel, and then we have Marcus also being brave.
Well, I'm more skeptical. I think it's solutions that is trying to find a problem. I'm not sure what is the problem that it's trying to solve, but maybe I'm missing something.
So Marcus, let's hear from you.
Thank you. I think if you think things from the legislation perspective, we should be technology neutral. So we don't know where the technology will lead us, and we don't know the use cases years or decades to come, whereas the legislation needs to be created so that it stands time. So definitely the blockchain or other technologies can have a place, but at the moment we don't know exactly what it would be in this health, especially in the secondary use of health data. Maybe the promising part would be sort of data altruism side, where people could donate their data, for example, from wellness apps or so, and some blockchain technology could be used to record maybe who has given or so, and then using this anonymous technology to maybe give back some answers to people who regarding of the findings, if you want to anonymize your data or donate it or so. But at the moment, as similar as the previous speaker, we don't have any actual use case at the moment, and it's not that we should think how we use the blockchain. It's the other way around. Maybe someday when we have those real needs, then we use the technology that we need for that.
That reminder, and yes, one of the rule of thumbs for policy making and legislation needs to be technology neutral as possible. It takes a long time to create legislation. Technology moves really fast, and we don't necessarily want to have a specific technology enshrined in legislation and then we're basically stuck with it. So thank you for all of that. And last question before we end this panel from our audience. Yes. Okay, so the question is to our Finnish expert. Do you have data about alternative medicine and integrative and alternative medicine? If our experts know, since it's quite specific and perhaps would be best answered by professionals, but if you can signal if you have any idea.
I beg your pardon, I didn't hear what was the first? Do you have any data on?
Are you aware of data sets that Finland has that can be available for research about or around integrative and alternative medicine and patient care?
Well, we have exactly the data that has been collected in the healthcare system. So I don't think so that we have.
Thank you so much, Johanna. And thank you, everyone. And it's time to wrap this up. Thank you to Yael and to Joel and to Johanna and to Marcus and to Jukka. And I think it's time to say goodbye from us and to invite Sami back to the stage and Lena to collect the insights and close our panels.
Excellent. Super, thank you so much, Limor, Joel, Markus, Jukka, Johanna, Yael. Very exciting panel. You don't see many times when all the panelists are actually quiet and not jumping into the questions. So that's great. And I think also there's a lot of like big things to wait. Really looking forward to kind of like this European data legislation updates coming next month, what Markus mentioned. So yeah, that sounds great. Also great. Thank you for the audience for the questions. And I think one thing what I want to highlight that Jukka also invited everybody to Finland. So there's going to be a big bus coming from the Israel in June, hopefully for the HIMSS, where you can also reach out and meet these Finnish experts in person. With that, I think we can move then to the next stage of our agenda, which is basically the startup showcases. So to be a little bit more concrete and actually see that like what kind of solutions the companies in Finland and Israel have been developing utilizing the data. So we have two companies from Finland and two companies from Israel. And first on the stage virtually, we will have Tuomo Pentikainen from Veil AI. And he will tell us then how they are enabling the use of sensitive data. So Tuomo, with that, over to you and 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Can you hear my voice? Can you see my slides? Okay, perfect. So my name is Tuomo Pentikainen and I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Veil AI. And for the next minutes, I'm talking about our new technology concerning anonymization, how to get access to high quality raw level data for analysis and at the same time being compliant with regulations like GDPR. I think it's pretty obvious for the people in this meeting that data is the enabler and driver of the next big things in medicine and healthcare. And I think that two of the challenges are also pretty obvious, that nobody has enough of data, but reuse is must. And sensitivity is the big thing that must be solved because that makes it otherwise very, very complicated. When we are looking at it from the mathematical or statistics point of view, the good news is that there does exist a very appealing solution, which is anonymization. But the bad news is that the currently existing ways to anonymize data, they destroy too much of the data quality, and they do not really support many of the exciting use cases, like, for instance, those where the data is accumulating fast. And this is exactly what we have focused on at Veil AI. We have reinvented anonymization in such a way where the quality problems are solved, and we can easily work also with complicated data types and also with accumulating data. And we are specifically serving pharma diagnostics companies and also data-intensive health tech companies. As far as data quality is concerned, we are providing very significant, measurable, and transparent quality improvements. And from the computational resource use point of view, the gains can be even orders of magnitude. As a business case example, I present what we are already doing with several global pharma and diagnostics companies. Their big problem is that the profitability of their R&D has collapsed. The return on investment of R&D used to be well above 10%, but during the previous decade, 80% of that return has melted. And now we will see most likely the fourth year in a row when the return will be about 2%. And some of the most attractive solutions to the big problem are related to secondary use of already existing health data. And this is exactly what our multi-party anonymization is helping in. We have several global customers in this area. Bayer is one of the important customers for us, and we are helping them in clinical trials to speed up the drug development, to increase safety, and to redesign the way how clinical trials can be implemented. We have several other customers in global pharma, diagnostics, and health tech. What we are offering is advanced anonymization, like I was describing. Then we offer services for pseudonymization and consent management, and for instance, several biobanks are using our services. Then our pipeline is able to generate very high quality synthetic data, and then we are also helping organizations in their data strategies and risk assessment issues. And in this call, thank you very much for the invitation. It was very, very exciting to hear the talks this far, and specifically what we are looking for. Of course, we are looking for customers, so pharma, diagnostics, life science, health tech companies that are interested in advanced de-identification technologies, meaning specifically advanced anonymization, synthetic data, or pseudonymization and consent management. Then we are serving and looking for organizations like hospitals or public organizations interested in secondary use of sensitive health data. And then we are specifically looking for hospitals, universities, biobanks who are building and improving their pipelines for de-identification, for data sharing, for different data collaboration platforms and solutions, and for data federation. And yes, we are a startup company, and we are all the time looking for investors. Thank you very much. Here are my contact details, and more than happy to answer any questions or take offline discussions with anybody who is interested.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tuomo. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions at this stage, but I saw some people were already taking pictures of your contact details. And if you didn't get those, if you want, you can also reach us, and we will connect you with Tuomo. Good. Then our next company is coming from Israel, but actually, Lady Julie Klerman, who is a VP of the Business Development, is dialing in from Silicon Valley, and the company is Rhino Health. Julie, over to you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very excited. I'm here to present Rhino Health, where, as mentioned, we're the company that's helping clinicians and researchers to access data in a federated approach. So we are incorporating our core technology for federated learning is NVIDIA, but we build an end-to-end platform that manages the entire orchestration between the edge devices. So just to say that our founders are Israeli, our management is Israeli. We have an R&D in Tel Aviv, just briefly. And I want to talk about the federated approach. The federated approach enables an inclusion of data from diversity sources, from international all around the world, and where the data stays and never leaves the premises of the entity that have the data ownership or have the data, and the compute is shared shared in a federated manner and orchestrated between them. We are not limited just for training and validation. We're actually providing analytics, and we can incorporate any general compute that developed. Bring your own tools, what is mentioning. So we're equipped, we are HIPAA compliant, so the data could be PHI, and the operator never sees the data and never exposed to the data. I want to a little bit to walk you through the platform and how it could be useful for Israeli and Finnish collaboration. The Finn data, they're just an example. The Finn data could have the Rhino client installed in a Finnish Finn data cloud, and any Israeli cloud can have the Finn client. The data stays in the Israel entity, and the Finnish data stays in the Finnish jurisdictions. But the user, that could be a researcher from the university, or it could be an AI startup or pharmaceutical company, or any IT corporate medical devices, operate the Rhino cloud. This is the governance, that's the governance hub. And we can allow distributed queries across this data for any clinical research, for pharma. It could be analytics. We can understand what are the cohorts coming from different places in a diverse population. And it could be with workflow orchestration for AI training and validation. You can bring your own tools. You can incorporate your own queries. You can incorporate your own scripts. Just to tell, those are all federated data lake, federated join. Those are the use cases. We work with EDRN, we work with NIH. We're installed at Asuta, Mar, and soon at Ehel and Sheba in Israel. Those are the exam study that been run for 20 hospitals across with COVID algorithm that showed the validation of the algorithm. The federated learning was much more successful in the training. We have an existing consortium of brain aneurysm running in the 7 hospitals across, and we have a new EDRN. This is pre-pancreatic, and we have a very new for rare diseases consortium that is orchestrated between MGH. My name is Yuli. Please, any questions, just if you're a researcher, a startup, a pharmaceutical company, or a data hospital, or any data management company that has a data aggregation, please ask me what we can do together, and let's democratize the access to data in a secure and privacy manner.
Thank you, Yuli. I have to say, this is the first time when I'm in the event when the startups are pitching and everybody is using less time what we gave them. I don't know if it's because the COVID, people are so used to like really, really delivering. Okay, great. The world has changed a lot of things. All right, then it's time to ask the next company on the stage, coming from Finland, also virtually. We have Kaikou Health. They have a little bit different approach, and it's a good example of how do you build good solutions for a very patient-centric solution. And I'll leave Vesa Kataja, their CMO, to reveal all the details. Vesa, over to you.
Should be okay now. Can you hear me now? That's good, very good. Sorry about that, the mess in the beginning. I hope you see my slides. And I'm definitely going to be the one who's going over 5 minutes. So thank you for the previous presenters. My name is Vesa Kataja. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Kaikou Health. Kaikou is a Finnish word and it means echo. So what we're trying to do with Kaikou is to echo the patient's voice. We do have, sorry, I can't switch my slides now. There it is, yeah. So we do have actually a challenge in cancer care. The incidence is growing very, very quickly, but also the prevalence is increasing, and this is producing a problem in many areas of the globe, because of course these patients who have been treated for cancer, they need to be followed up somehow anyway for some years, even decades after the treatments. And of course, we do have a lot of new personalized and targeted treatments and totally new toxicity associated to these treatments. Take, for example, cancer immuno-oncology, which we never seen before appearing with toxic treatments, kind of adverse effects like we see in immunotherapy. So there's a need to monitor the patients during the treatment, and also very much need to monitor the patients after the treatment. And here, Kaikou is the solution. So it is a personalized digital patient monitoring and management system, which has specific algorithms to capture patient-reported symptoms and other outcomes. It will notify the care team and provide the personalized support also for the patient, and at the same time generates real-world data. We do have, from DigiSimilars, we do have already evidence that this type of tools like Kaikou might even provide us improved overall survival in cancer care. This is from Ethan Bass' study, which was actually done with a non-commercial research tool with not that much intelligence included in it. Kaikou Health is trying to go beyond only reacting to the patient's needs and reported symptoms. We do have some evidence already presented at ESMO and ASCO that with patient-reported outcome data, we will be able actually to predict the symptoms, and especially this is true in immuno-oncology treatments, where the symptoms might come and the immunological toxicity might come at any time during the treatment, unpredictably. Kaikou will help here. We can also predict onset and presence of the adverse events. We have some data on that, and also predicting treatment response based on patient-reported outcome data, which is a fantastic thing in a clinic, because then you would not need even to wait for a certain time in order to get the imaging done, etc., etc. So there's much to do with the patient-reported outcome data and the use of machine learning to improve, going from reactivity to predictivity. Simply how Kaikou works: the patient is registered into the program, she has an email address, registers in, and then the Kaikou will start sending treatment and cancer-specific symptom questionnaires to the patient. If the patient is all right and there's nothing to worry about, the patient will get some response to the data that she has provided, some kind of an help perhaps to take care of mild nausea, and also gets information on the treatment that she or he receives. But if there is something worrying happening, there's an alert. There's an alert to the patient, and there's an alert to the healthcare personnel at the same time. There's also a possibility for non-urgent communication between the patient and the healthcare provider, either with chat, video calls, or emails also. And also Kaikou can be connected to the hospital information systems, so that it can actually work as a standalone or as an integrated system to the hospital. So far, we have developed modules, we call them programs or modules, for external beam radiation therapy, for most targets, and also survivorship programs for external beam radiation therapy patients, and medical oncology modules that you have a selection in this slide. And of course, we're following up the developments in cancer care very closely, and accordingly develop a new module for a specific treatment. We do have a very good patient experience. Some figures in here. The compatibility, the patient compliance in here is absolutely great. If you look at it, it's over 90% in most of the cases in our modules. And also the usual worry is that, elderly people will not be able to use this, but this is a little by little disappearing problem, of course, as you understand. The current median age for our patients is about 63 years, but the oldest one who's been using Kaikou so far is 90 years of age. So we have co-created this system with a lot of different hospitals and institutes, as you can see here, and also there's a pharma collaboration going on with Kaikou and several pharma companies, where we are tailoring more and more the product into the specific drug. And this is where Kaikou is present at the moment, and where we hopefully will be present next. This is that's the web page for the company, and then my email for contact, if you please. We're looking for company hospitals, for example, to do collaboration with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vesa. First, I thought that you're joking when you said that you're going to use all the minutes from the other companies, but obviously you didn't. Well done. Okay, we're going to take on the stage physically here our final company tonight. It's a Diagnostic Robotics, and presented by Oren Sarik, who is a Director of Business Strategy and Product Marketing. Oren, please, stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. Really fun to be around here and fun to wrap this night. I think it should be an interesting presentation to wrap this evening, because we talked a lot about how you access data, how you connect to different resources. And our company is more of an application of that. Is the speaker not working? Hold it close. All right, this way. And our company is an application of that. So despite being called Diagnostic Robotics, we don't do diagnostics and we don't do robotics. It's a legacy name from when the company was founded, but what we do is AI applications on healthcare data. Most of our work is based in the US, working with health plans in the US. And what we do with them is we try to constantly be monitoring their medical claims databases and identify patients who are off track in their clinical course. So patients who are on the way to seeing to low value care, patients who are neglecting their care, patients who are about to deteriorate, and we help identify those situations and reach out to those patients and help get them to the best resources that are available for them. Compared to other companies in the space, the screen is not updating here. All right, this is something technical because it is updating on the screen here, just not on the Zoom, but I'll keep talking. So compared to other companies in the space, so working with health plans are really focused on one specific clinical condition and taking it from identifying the potential intervention to treating the patient. What we do is we help utilize the existing in-network resources available at the health plan to be able to connect patients to care across a wide variety of clinical domains. Working? No. To connect patients to clinical care across a wide variety of clinical domains. And so we work on things like chronic condition management, behavioral health management, MSK care, kidney disease, really a wide variety of clinical conditions. And in all of them, the common theme is identifying patients who need proactive intervention, who could use someone reaching out to them and helping connect them to the right care. The work we do with health plans is really focused on doing the entire cycle of the clinical program. So we started by identifying pockets of patients with a similar problem that we can reach out to and do something about, creating personalized plans for those patients to say that, you know, this specific patient is on track to a spinal surgery that's low value, and if we connected them to a primary care provider who is skilled at managing back pain, they'll probably do a good job with that patient, help them find some conservative treatment that's going to help. Once we've found that individual circumstances, then we can help drive engagement with a member. Because what we try to do is work with health plans to integrate our insights into every single touch point that they have with those members, including when care managers reach out to them, when they're under utilization management review, when working with their providers in order to tell the provider that they need to be talking to a patient about a specific situation. And it's okay. We'll just do it without the deck. I'll just keep talking, I think. And making sure that this reaches the patient all the way. What's special about the way we do AI, as opposed to other solutions out there, is that the way this is typically done in a lot of other implementations is using risk-based targeting. Essentially, a lot of AI models will try to predict the risk and say, here's a risky patient, and those are patients you want to manage. That approach is a bit problematic in our view in the way we set this up. The reason is that when you look for the riskiest patient, ultimately you're going to be reaching out to the oldest and sickest members, many of whom are high cost indeed, but they're high cost for a good reason. They're high cost because they have a lot of medical needs. That is why they're utilizing a lot of medical services. Our focus is really on identifying clinically preventable opportunities. So finding situations where patients have something tangible that if you talk to that patient about, you can prevent their further deterioration, whether that be improper condition management, improper utilization of resources, and we identify those cases and help proactively reach out to them. And ultimately what we do is we try to move patients from a situation where they're, just to give a couple of examples, right? You have a CHF patient suffering from depression. They forget to take their medication. They forget to go to their physician. We identify that from the claims. We reach out to them and we make sure that you improve their adherence and you get them connected to the right care resources at the right time to prevent exacerbations that would have otherwise happened. And the system works. I'm skipping a lot of slides here, but I mean, and the system works, right? When you implement this, ultimately we're able to produce results such as a 4-fold reduction in unnecessary ED visits for patients who are using the ED for the wrong purposes. We make care management operations a lot more effective because once we identify members who have tangible medical needs that need to be addressed, then we can reach out, then we can help care managers get more positive responses from the patients that they're reaching out to, because you're reaching them in a point of time when you're answering an unmet need there, and that just improves the entire operation of the whole thing. They're getting more positive responses, and this ultimately reduces the cost of care, right? So when you look at members with a variety of conditions we treat, you can see very meaningful cost of care reduction for those members, which is also a very strong incentive for those health plans to implement those programs using this AI-driven approach. And so all of this is enabled thanks to all the data infrastructure put in place by all the organizations we just talked to, and kind of shows the applications that you can do when you bring this out to the market, when you work with the health plans, and when you get the actual patients there. Fantastic. I'm at the end here. So there's just an incredible amount of results there, and I'll stick around for a few minutes if anyone has any follow-up questions. Happy to answer them. So thank you all for being here, and thanks for the time.
1, 2. Is this working? One, two. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Oren, and apologizes for the technical challenges. Very brave presentation still without the slides and jumping back and forth, so well done. All right, with these showcases, we have come now to an end of our virtual program today. And on behalf of Finland, I definitely like to thank our great audiences virtually in Finland and all over the world. We had signups actually from 26 different countries, so I think that's a pretty good achievement. And of course, then our physical audience here in Israel. Also, kudos to our speakers and our panelists today, and thank you for sharing all the insights and letting us pick your brain a little bit during tonight. And of course, Startup Nation Central team for partnering with us and making this great event happen. Toda raba. And Lena, any last words from your side?
Thank you, Sami, and thank you everyone, our amazing, very knowledgeable panel participants and the moderator, Limor, and the amazing startups and everyone who came here and who joined us on Zoom. And we hope you heard something new and learned some insights and got some perspective on the opportunities around the use of data. And on behalf of all Startup Nation Central, of all of us in Startup Nation Central, we hope to see you at our next events. And thank you, Sami, thanks again.